Welcome back, YouTube friends. We're on the next day and we're ready to start squeezing the pumpkin and getting rid of any of the extra liquid that's in it. That's why we salted it yesterday and let it sit overnight. So there's basically two ways to do this. One is to just grab a handful and squeeze the dickens. As you can see, quite a bit of liquid comes out. And it takes some time. Our completed squeezed pumpkin is pretty dry. I mean, it is moist still, it's not going to be totally dry, but there's a lot less liquid in it than there was. And we just keep doing that. Now, the other technique, especially for people who have slightly weaker hands, is to get a sturdy dishcloth, dish towel. And sturdy because I have ripped them on occasions before. So you make a little bundle with your pumpkin in the bottom and you twist and you squeeze. Either method works. If you have a nice sturdy dish towel or dishcloth that you can use, then that works really well actually. And it's usually my preferred method. Mom always did it in her hands, but she was strong and she was used to that kind of work. So as you can see, this is quite a bit drier than by my hand pressure alone. So I will continue doing the rest of our pumpkin like this until it's all done, and then I'll come back and we'll do the next step. So I've squeezed all the liquid out of our pumpkin, and I've got the big bowl here full of it, which is ready for our pumpkin strudel, which I will start next. We are now going to open, they say open, a phyllo in Greek, and I will show you how to do that in a second. Alright, we are ready to start assembling our Kolokithopita. I've got everything done. We've got our phyllo ready, we've got our pumpkin squeezed, I've got all the other ingredients together, so we're ready to start. So first things first, we're going to flour our work surface quite liberally, and a large space because you're going to open this up to a good, almost 2 feet or so. Here's our phyllo. I took the phyllo out of the fridge after it sat overnight, about the same time as when I started squeezing the pumpkin, so it could come not quite room temperature, but not cold. And you want to keep it quite well floured. It's a soft dough, as you can see, and it opens quite nicely. We are now going to use the Greek rolling pin, which is called a plasti. And a plasti is basically, like I said, sort of like a broom handle. This one was made by my dad for my mom. It's been in the family for as long as I can remember. I am 55, and I'm guessing that this is either close or maybe even older, I'm not sure. I think it's oak, but I can't tell you for sure. It's very smooth. It's been polished to an inch within its life, and I think it's oiled. Mom uses this, of course, for opening up phyllo, which is what we say in Greek. We open a phyllo. She also used it she made feta, so she used to hang her feta in the cheesecloth with this suspended between the backs of 2 chairs over a thing to catch the whey. So that's how she tended to do that kind of thing. We used it to drape pasta over to dry. It's had a lot of use, let's say. So we are going to use it at the beginning like a regular rolling pin, like a French rolling pin or Indian rolling pin, they don't have the ball bearing handles that a North American rolling pin has. And we're just going to keep rotating it 90 degrees. to try and keep it sort of circular. Keep it well floured. I rotate it up, over and under so that the flour from the bottom comes to the top. You don't have to worry about over flouring it too much, although you don't want a stack of flour at the end in the end product. Alright, that's good enough to start using it in the traditional or common fashion. We're now going to do the technique that this rolling pin is actually used for. And that is, you're going to really well flour your product, your phyllo. You're going to rotate or flip it over and bring it back so that it is ready to start rolling into like a jelly roll around your wooden rolling pin. You're going to put your hands on it, palms down, and you're going to apply downward and outward pressure as you're rotating back and forth. So you're doing this kind of motion. It's not a heavy pressure, just a moderate. And what this does is it squeezes the pastry between the rolling pin and itself, and you start rotating or gathering it up as well. I have a little bit of problem with room here, but and then as you do one section about twice, roll it forward a bit, you can bring it back. And you keep doing this motion until you go all the way the width of the dough. Now you're going to take it, we were working it this way, we're going to now unroll it this way. And hopefully I put enough flour because I don't want it to stick. But sometimes it does, and you just gently tease it apart, trying not to get holes in it. Not that it's a end of the world thing, but alright. So as you saw, it widened quite a bit that way. So we're going to flour it again. More on the side where the rolling pin's going to go. And I'm going to give it one more rolling out this way. So again, downwards and outwards. And just back and forth, little by little. And I think that's going to do us. So I've got olive oil, I've got ground cinnamon, and I've got granulated sugar. So it's a matter of layering these flavorings and the pumpkin and then rolling it all up. So we're going to start with the olive oil, and it takes quite a bit. A good drizzle. And then our sugar. And for a piece this wide, which is at least 2 inches or 2 feet, I'm going to do about a cup on the bottom. You do need the sugar with the in this recipe because pumpkin itself isn't sweet, and if you don't add the sugar, it comes out quite savory, and it's not the right thing for a dessert. It's more of a almost like a vegetarian side dish or something. Then we're going to sprinkle it with cinnamon quite heavily. I mean, not like you're looking for complete coverage, but a good sprinkle everywhere. Now, when I've taught my cousins how to make this, they always ask me how much sugar to put. And I'm like, put on as much as you think it needs, and then add another handful or so. Because without the sugar, it's really not pleasant. Mom didn't like serving us a lot of sugar, but the kids and Dad really wouldn't eat it if it didn't have the proper sweetness in it. So she learned that, or I was always there going, Mom, needs more sugar, Mom needs more sugar, and so she would perforce add more sugar. Now, when you add the pumpkin, you want a good layer, but you don't want to cover it 100%. You do want to see phyllo through it. First of all, if you add too much pumpkin, it gets quite mushy, which isn't pleasant. And you want that doughiness in the strudel. You want some of that. You don't want to sort of have just pumpkin. You can probably get another one out of this. All right. So what you haven't seen so far is the fact that I made 2 more of these, but my camera sort of died in the middle. So luckily I had 2 more to demonstrate the whole process. So I think that's good there. So like you see, there's quite a bit of dough. You can still see through it. The camera doesn't really show it as well, but there's a good layer or good spacing of pumpkin and phyllo and stuff. So now we repeat the 3 flavorings again. So olive oil again. Now, I know olive oil is weird in anything sweet, but trust me, it works in this particular recipe. I have tried doing this with vegetable oil, like a canola or a corn oil, and it does not come out right. You really need the olive oil for this to taste proper. You really need the sugar. So those 2 things are quite critical. My family likes this as is. I'm calling this a plain version, but this is actually the best version. We've had, Mom has tried, and we've had friends, drop off their family's versions. Some people add raisins, some people add nuts like walnuts, some people add sesame seeds. We didn't like any of them. The only thing that we've tried that is nice but isn't this is adding like North American pumpkin pie spices, like adding some nutmeg and some cloves. It's nice, but it's not Greek pumpkin strudel. It's not Kolokithopita. So you can try that if you want, but if you want the true experience, it's just the cinnamon. And you want quite a bit of cinnamon. That's the real flavoring here. The cinnamon and the pumpkin are sort of the stars of the show. Of course, the sugar to make it all nice and sweet. Alright, so now once we've got our layers all done, we are going to roll it up, jelly roll fashion. We're going to work that way. I'm going to move that a bit so we get a nice even edge. You want to move some of the pumpkin off of the edge because that's where we're going to sort of seal it. And we're just going to roll it up. You don't have to go too tight, just enough to roll it up. There's no real pressure required. I'm just whatever pressure itself makes on itself. There we go. So we got our roll done. Any strays can go back in the bowl because they're going to go right back in. And we're going to place it on our baking sheet. Now I'm using a parchment lined baking sheet. Mom used to use a olive oil smeared 24-inch, 3-inch wide or deep aluminum baking pan. And she would lay the pita along the edge and then continue the coil. So she would fill up the pan with the strudel. I don't have her pan handy at the moment, so I'm just going to use the cookie sheet, but I am going to do the coil technique. So just bring it in, and then we're going to push it down, flatten it to about 1 inch thick. Tuck the ends under so the filling stays inside and leaves us a nice clean edge. I've got my oven heated to 375 degrees. Mom cooked pretty much everything, or baked everything at 375. So that's what I'm doing. And I am now going to put this aside and make the second sheet of phyllo. And we'll continue the coil. And then I will show you how to finish it before we put it in the oven. Alright, we are back. I'm sorry, but I think my camera decided to stop working halfway through, so I'm not sure where I left off. So I will talk to you about what I did. So I opened the second phyllo. I did the same layering as I did for the first phyllo. I put it next to this one and continued the coil. I sprinkled the top with olive oil and some water. I rubbed it in so it was nice and smooth. And I'm now cutting it to allow steam to escape. You don't want to cut all the way to the bottom. And it makes it look pretty too when you cut it. And I cut it into wedge shapes since it is a circular dessert, or in a circular form. My oven's at 375. And this is going to go in until it's nice and golden, dark golden brown. And I will show you that next. Alrighty, here's our pita out of the oven. It's been out of the oven now for about an hour. My battery on my camera died, so I just waited till it charged again to show you the final product. It's still warm, which is quite nice. This is a good time to, or a good temperature to be eating it at, but it's also great at room temperature, which is normally the way we had it. Mom would just put it on a plate, and she would actually leave it in the oven with the door closed, and we could pick at it whenever we wanted something to snack on or whatever. It's a great after school snack, etc. And on the days that she made it, sometimes that was dinner, with a nice big glass of water, or milk, sorry. And yeah, so I'm going to cut it up for you now so you can see what it looks like inside. And normally I follow the cut marks that are already in it. So this is what it looks like on the inside. And so we would have pieces like this on a platter, and you just help yourself to it. I'm going to take a bite and see if it's sweet enough. Yep, perfect. Just sweet enough, not too sweet, and it probably could have a little bit more sugar for my tastes. But it's a decent sweetness. The phyllo doesn't get too hard. It's a little crunchy on the bottom, which is good contrast. A nice rich pumpkiny cinnamon flavor. All around good stuff. All right. Thank you very much for joining me, and hope you come back soon to see another one of Mom's Greek recipes. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.